Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. This is going to be game 2 between Kiko and White of round 1 of Hasuleague. Again, everybody plays everybody in this set. I had interesting conversations with people in my off time. One was, how do we bring StarCraft to the mainstream? And someone made the suggestion of VTubing, which I thought was hilarious. I will say, if I meet some sort of, I don't know, if I hit a Twitch subscription goal or a view count goal or some kind, maybe I'll go find a VTube of something, make something special. This is going to be on Dominator. Maybe that is the secret sauce to get Brood War into the mainstream everywhere else. Upper left-hand corner, White starting as the yellow Protoss. Bottom left-hand corner, we have Kiko starting as the red Terran. This is on Dominator. I feel like Dominator is oftentimes a little bit more Protoss favored just because of this inverted ramp. Because you have, whenever you have an inverted ramp, it makes the early game pressure more effective. And it just, yeah, it's a little bit more challenging. You also have kind of the interesting, people call them pizza slices or spokes here in the middle, where you can see it can be a little bit staggered and a little bit easier to defend, but the inverted ramp is really the big story. A little bit of a droppable terrain. I think the other problem for Terran on this map is there's not a lot of places to build things as well. It's like, where do you put your factories in the midst of this? So I feel like it encourages Terran to actually expand a little bit more rapidly, almost to just secure more territory to be able to just flat out build, but otherwise a little bit of a challenge as far as just spacing and territory and whatnot. White opening up with a gateway assimilator. We're not seeing any sort of proxy tech or anything crazy along those lines. Gas getting grabbed alongside that barracks for Kiko. So not going to go for barracks into command center or anything along those lines, but going back, as I said previously, the early game has really become a refined thing between Protoss and Terran. Initial zealots are not rare in PvT these days, just to create some initial pressure out on the map. And especially if you have that zealot, sometimes it's kind of been a weird back and forth where it's like, okay, we're going to add 3 Marines and an SCV, 3 Marines and a Vulture, 3 Marines, an SCV and a Vulture to win kind of that earlier positional game to make sure that Vulture gets out on the map. And it's kind of created a little bit of warfare where you'll see players, I feel like it's made early game gateways a little bit stronger. Especially, it's kind of this weird cycle of a thing too, where early game 2 gate can be a little bit stronger, but especially if Terran delays siege tech. But if they pull the trigger on siege check, then you got a whole bunch of troops that are doing exactly what for you as Protoss, and you needed that speed to catch up with upgrade Terran. Anyway, that's the cycle of the meta right this second. Kiko is able to get the scout. Bottom right hand corner was scouted here by White, so now making his way towards his opponent's base. We have the initial 2 Marines waiting on that corner. They're going to take a step forward to go ahead and engage that initial probe. First Dragoon out, range upgrading. So a little bit more old school standard rather than a zealot slipping in the midst of this. I feel like what that ends up doing as a result though is that just puts a White in a position where he ends up having to play passively off the 2 initial bases. If you're just going 1 gate into expand and range, it's a little bit harder. So probes getting escorted out off the pizza slice by those Marines. And that means, first of all, no bunker needed. Second of all, Vulture's certainly going to end up on the field, and Kiko should feel very comfortable getting this natural expansion. Kiko, a little bit concerned about proxy potentially, because he's going out and exploring the map. Is he going to proxy himself? I don't think so. I think he's just checking and making sure that there wasn't anything hidden out around the corner. No, is he going to build here? No, he's just checking, which is unusual, because maybe I thought he saw the initial 3 pylons, but maybe he missed initial pylon. We're going 1 gate. 1 gate observatory, or sorry, 1 gate robo into expand here from Kiko. So just wants to get that observer out as rapidly as possible to deal with that initial Vulture. Natural expansion is up. A 4th Marine joining the fray. Vulture already, what is the Vulture? Yeah, Vulture already out towards that forward pizza slice. And the SCV exploring out a little bit as well. Not going to be able to, well, I think might have been able to confirm the corner of that natural expansion. Sin gateway has been added on. So White just kind of going to go for a passive mid 2 base. The one thing I don't like about this though is it gives opportunity for Terran to harass it's kind of an inversion almost, where Terran gets an opportunity to maybe delay and harass that 3rd with initial Vultures, with mines just trying to snipe that probe. And so it's kind of a game of cat and mouse, and you have to be careful escorting the Dragoons out towards wherever you're taking that initial expansion in defending the probe against vultures that are trying to snipe it, while also defending potential run-bys from your natural expansion depending on positioning here. Bunker actually getting dropped from Kiko. I'm not sure that was necessary. But Kiko going for a bunker, going to play very, very passively here, dropping a missile turret as well. Very, very concerned about Reaver drop, actually, and it looks like it's going to be Observatory 3 gate instead. And this is a lot of resources being sunk in turrets and whatnot that's not needed, and he's still sitting on the single factory. Yeah, granted, this is not a bad map for Reaver drop at all, but Kiko may be playing himself a little bit where he's overly anticipating. Maybe it's an artifact of game one where he's like, I won that so heavily as far as the macro battle, I don't have to worry about it. Vulture wandered out. Looks like the mines just getting planted very defensively. This is very unusual for this era of meta from Kiko, putting the mines to the front like this. This is very anti-Reaver style mine positioning, and the Observer is still going to be able to make its way across and confirm because of just the small... also, well, I guess the Observer got tagged, so that lets Kiko know that there's an observatory up. But also White going to be able to see the factory count. He should feel very, very safe now going for an additional base somewhere out on the map. Going to drop that pylon wall, leave some Dragoons behind. Yeah, moving its way out. And this Vulture, and because the mines were planted elsewhere on the map, as soon as this Vulture is pushed off, there's not a lot else. And honestly, White could go ahead and grab 2 additional bases if he wanted to. Because with just 2 factories and only a single Vulture on the map, that's not a lot of pressure. Another SCV making its way out and about. But we'll see what White opts to do. I think the standard thing these days is just to go 3 base and then fill in the gateway count from there and just build a large attack force to engage what would be a potential +1 timing to kind of engage and make sure they went for 5 or 6 factories and have as efficient attack force. Looks like we're seeing double machine shop instead here from Kiko to potentially supplement an attempted upgrade turn, I would say here. So maybe going to go ahead and go for a test. So get a lot of siege tanks. Again, this is more anti-Reaver sort of construction. Getting a lot of the siege tanks down so you kind of recover. And you can see he's already built a lot of mines and whatnot, or a lot of turrets out. And also this is the problem for Kiko on top of this is, again, not a lot of room in this base. And these mines and these turrets take up even more space. It looks like he is going to be able to go ahead and drop a 3rd factory here in that corner. But going to go ahead and blockade. It looks like White going to go ahead and grab that 12 o'clock base. See if he opts for the mineral only. Might not. He's still sitting on the 4 gateways right this second. Look for that gateway count to increase. We do have some zealots out the shuttle. Might explore out towards the front around the 9-minute mark, looking for a potential +1 attack timing. We do have +1 weapons upgrading here in the background. 3rd factory dropping, and okay, now we're seeing the 4th and the 5th, and this is more on meta these days to get that 5 factory count, so you kind of surge in supply. But it feels like the surge in supply is somewhat slow. Few comp stats out from Kiko. Gonna go ahead and just check the Dragoon count on the front and confirm the location of that additional expansion. So recognizes that there is a 3rd up here from White. White still hasn't filled in that gateway count, and usually I'm more accustomed to a gateway count fill at this stage. One problem for Kiko, and this might be why he went so mineral defensive, is, and I would understand this on this map, is you do need to be very cautious about maintaining your natural expansion, and particularly this positioning right here, because again, if you end up losing any position here, if you get pushed back to this ramp area, which happens quite often, it is very difficult to get back underneath because you got that misfire chance walking uphill. But now we've got the 5 factory. We're gonna have +1 weapons finished in not too long, probably around the 11:30 minute. Around 11 minutes, Kiko's going to be in a good position with a lot of troops. He is sort of angling out towards that potential mineral only. Let's see if he just opts to go ahead and grab that. Yeah, I was already placing a missile turret there. White a little bit delayed. He still has an opportunity to kind of cycle in from the right-hand side. Has gone all sorts of observers. Look at this. Maybe he was worried about drops as well. He's got 4 observers covering absolutely everything right now. So, and that's a lot of things that weren't shuttles and weren't reavers, I will say. So keeping very, very strict eyes here on Kiko, making sure he hasn't gone anyplace, is approaching from the north, which is right where Kiko's defenses are primarily staged. The observer is kind of pocketed in, so he's going to be able to see when that command center is staging them. Vulture's covering the rest of the field, still sitting just on 4 gateways, and White going forward and able to take out a turret, but eating a few siege tank hits as well. Mostly putting Kiko on notice, but I think Kiko is going to wait another minute or so. I missed this. Vulture's recognizing that army out to the front, sliding in and able to get a handful of kills towards that natural expansion. Again, showing the strength the Vulture's out on the map, but it looks like White going for the counterattack at what he thought might be the third going up, just going to wipe out that turret on the front. So this is more typical, by the way, as far as the modern day, although usually there's a larger... Okay, now we're starting to see that gateway flood behind it here from White. I was expecting that a little bit earlier. It might just be me being off on commentator meta, whatnot. It's been a minute. But White able to fill in a lot of the troops. Yeah, just going to try to shove a lot of this back and trade and get as much damage as possible. Zealot bombs into the turret, so loses turret and bunker, so ends up losing a lot of that attack force. And White going to go ahead and draw back. I think he saw enough siege tanks where he's like, okay, that's a respectable siege tank count. Let me go ahead and withdraw and maybe make my way up to additional units. Otherwise, we do have a science vessel. Finishing +1 weapons is complete. We do have +2 weapons queued up. I don't see a second armory in the midst of this. Yeah, no second armory in the midst of this. But Kiko, critically, so he's gone up to the 5. He's gone up to the 5 factories. Usually this is where you'll see Terran kind of exploring out on the map to see whether there's a large enough or a comsat dropped or something along those lines to check the gateway count, to see whether there's a respectable Protoss army as to whether you're going to attack or not. It looks like right now he's being very cautious with this. So rather than spreading the units he's got out on the field to establish that third, maybe because of fear of these observers, building a very passive command center interior to float over the wall and drop. So we'll see how that works out. That's going to be a massive delay. It looks like White is delayed on his 4th as well, however. Couple factories being dropped on. We have a dropship yet again from Kiko. As far as late stages, it looks like we already have some cannons out at various positions to help mitigate that slightly. Slew of Dark Templar. Here we got the 9 gateway count, which we should just about expect. Kind of the more common thing you expect out of the plays. We have that dropship making its way up along that left-hand side. Kiko doing a really good job of shutting down, at least, and having eyes on the rest of these expansions. Third base making its way over the wall. About a 20 supply count lead here for White. Looks like it is going to be a siege tank and a bit else towards the main. Kind of that back corner. Man, I can't remember what the hotkey is to get rid of that, but we'll keep an eye on that mini-map. White making his way across. The observer going to get picked off. He sees that SCV building, recognizes, okay, he's going for position. Kiko going to drop amidst those lines. Okay, he's making his way towards that natural expansion. There's even more cannons there, unfortunately. Siege tank dropping. White not responding very rapidly to this. Probably getting the first initial response right there. Probe going to defend it with the Zealots. So siege tank has been taken out. The dropship looks like, yeah, it's going to get some eyes, but not much else. So a little bit of economic disruption, but White now has a surge in supply. And on this map, I'm going to give him a sizable advantage as a result. This is still a lot of siege tanks. And he's got a window before +2 weapons. Zoop. So we can click that. +2 weapons comes online, where, and there's just this massive open field to attack into, where the 40 supply count differential will be really, really beneficial, particularly with Zealot leg speed. But he needs to move, because as soon as that +2 weapons hit and we have a little bit more of an entrenched position with some mines and things like that, it becomes more challenging to deal with that. Interesting here from White, rather than expanding out to close quarters, he's going to go ahead and expand out to the 3 o'clock location. Usually when you see the 9 gateway flood, you see it tested at the front before grabbing an additional base, but this is, again, kind of the stuff you see these days, where it's game sense and testing a lot of the corners here. But White is going to do something here in a minute, because he's got 200 supply to work with. 2 more siege tanks loading up. Kiko, I think, just wanting that dropship to be able to apply pressure and have something to do here in the mid game. White going to go ahead and march in I'm not sure why he's committing his entire army this direction. Could just send in a couple dragoons to clear out that vulture. And is repositioning to engage from the north. And actually, where I would have been worried about this earlier, this is now a great direction to come from at this stage of the match, as long as he bunches it up. And now he's going to come off the high ground as well. A lot of these siege tanks are going to have a misfire chance up this direction. The Zealots also crawling in from the north. Dark Templar getting in there. A huge mine drag onto those siege tanks along that right-hand side. Now this third, very exposed. +2 weapons did finish, but not he's strong enough in Trent's position, and White able to find that gap. Third is down. And now 50 supply lead from White, and he can just back up from here. Or Psystorm the front if he wants to. Looks like there's a bunch of SCVs sitting there just waiting to get Psystormed. Oh, goodness. What a time to meet Thor and go across the Bifrost right there. Front door breach, that's certainly going to be game. Yeah, Kiko GGing immediately, because as soon as that natural expansion breaches, that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We are now tied 1 apiece. Third game coming up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.